quite a while before I even read the script. And I was asked if I was told that Peter was interested in me playing Christoph.
Shows in their finest expression have come and gone, but none registered in the minds of viewers, critics, and naysayers like The Truman Show. A lifespan extending beyond the industry's shores created a lasting impact that cannot be etched out of history. At a time when shows were struggling to stamp their feet in the industry, The Truman Show came with a rave that dumbfounded even the critical thinkers of yesteryears. It wasn't another pier of usual duels and needless drama, but drove a compelling story that kept viewers in suspense, glued to their TV screens thanks to Andrew Niccol and Peter Weir, who made it possible. The Truman Show became the industry anthem and created a deep love for science fiction thrillers, which was rare to come by. It revived the drowned reputation of TV shows while simultaneously rewriting the ugly narratives imposed by the failed shows. With prolific performances from Jim Carrey, Laura Linney, and Ed Harris, the show balanced the pretense with soothing drama that appealed to all and sundry. It was proof that shows can make a difference and a testament that some shows only come once in a lifetime. And when they do, they leave a trailblazer for the world to see. However, if you are draped in the consciousness that all you have seen is all there is to the story, then prepare for a wild shock. Behind the iconic moments lie a plethora of behind-the-scenes feuds, perfect chemistry, pure friendship, and production misdemeanors that will even blow your mind the most. From unexpected on-set mishaps to timeless creativity that introduced a more unique concept, the show was as exciting as the story it told. Not to bore you with a long talk, buckle your seatbelt, and let's go on a thrilling journey as we uncover some secrets that the Truman Show cast revealed. Jim Carrey had some reservations about the show.
Classics and stuff like that. I mean, we're living through such an age of remakes and redos. I'm wondering what you think the first Jim Carrey classic movie.
Everyone, they say, is entitled to their opinion, and for Jim Carrey, his was drawn from a place of emotion. Jim, who played Truman in the show, had some good thoughts he wanted to share concerning the show, and when he had the opportunity to do so, he hesitated no further. In an interview with Collider, Jim poured out his heart regarding the show, and it was genuinely lovely hearing from the actor's perspective. When asked which of his past roles in an era of continual remakes and sequels is most worth it, here is how he put it. "Now everybody has a subscriber channel," Carrey replied. "Everybody has their own little Truman Show world. There is something to be had there. I often think and am asked about what would have happened to Truman if he had gone outside the wall. It took me a while to realize that he was alone because everybody went back inside. They all wanted to be in the dome." Jim never said anything outside of how he felt. His reaction proves that even the best actors sometimes reflect on the movies they starred in, hoping they could change one or two. But reality hits when they realize that they are all alone, and that nothing within their power can change how they operated in the past. It had some crazy impact in the film space.
Expensive, and he hadn't done anything. We ended up working for a year together on that script, and which, of course, when I read it,
In all ramifications, the world of the movie and show industry was vast, and as such, any TV show needed more than zeal to break out. The Truman Show came with an unusual presence and rattled every status quo that deprived shows of their flowers in years past. Peter Weir, the phenomenal director of The Truman Show, made his honest observation about the show, and without exaggeration, it is the truth. The outstanding director, who had many credits to his name, revealed how the show changed a lot in the industry that was never there before. In an exclusive interview, Weir revealed what it meant working on the project and how it has impacted. "When I first read an early draft for The Truman Show, I immediately foresaw a film that was highly ambitious and unusual in its scope, yet I never imagined it would be as eerily prophetic as it would become. I had no idea the film foreshadowed reality TV, or that it would come in recent years to touch on the old philosophical question, what is reality?" Weir reflects. Since it premiered on TV screens, the show truly has affected lives in no small way. What began as a zeal has transcended decades and is still counting. As a director, it's necessary to have foresight. Weir saw the future, so he crafted something extraordinary, leaving no chance of fading away. Jim Carrey was initially tied up somewhere.
Right now, I'm ready for it, I'm not in the park with my daughter, I never got the concept of public person.
Actors must be the busiest people on earth and often have little or no time for recuperation. From the get-go of his career, Jim Carrey has always been an A-list actor, sought mainly by all and sundry, and this guy has truly helped shape his career with experiences. To tell you a little secret, the phenomenal actor who played Truman in the show was preoccupied initially when the director gave him a head start. While the show's producers were sure Jim would be a nice catch, there was a logistical problem. Carrey was tied up with many projects. At the time, Carrey was preoccupied with filming The Cable Guy 1996 and Liar Liar 1997. His contractual obligations delayed The Truman Show's scheduled start date significantly. Nevertheless, the director was confident he was the one who would deliver the kind of performance he was looking for. Rather than recast the role, which was a popular Hollywood practice, he gave him the benefit of the doubt by waiting until all was clear. Director Weir had this to say in one of his interviews regarding the actor. "Our first meeting was at Jim's house, and we were working on new ideas within the first half hour. I remember saying they would probably have a camera in the bathroom mirror. Maybe he talks to himself. Jim was on his feet within seconds. Let's try it. We were in business," he recalls. Jim wasn't an actor one could just bypass without looking beyond what was trying to hold him down. He proved his worth repeatedly. No wonder he is called the king of acting. Truman was happy with the script from the very get-go.
Thank you.
Scripts play a significant role in shaping an actor's performance, and most actors wouldn't dare hit the gear rolling if the script wasn't appealing to them. In the Hollywood industry, actors have repeatedly turned down scripts solely because of what they looked like. However, for Jim Carrey, it was a different story altogether. Did you know that when Jim was handed the script for The Truman Show, he was genuinely excited about it? Truman Burbank's role was meaningful to Carrey, and upon receiving the script, he was fully ready to get the gears rolling immediately. At the time, he was one of Hollywood's highest-paid male actors, yet he was willing to take a significant pay cut from his standard fee. Not many actors have trained themselves to get involved in a project out of love and emotional connection, but the reverse is the case for Carrey. According to the director, the role was personal for him, and he was willing to take any risk so that he could be on the project. "I didn't do this because I needed to show that I am super, but how I love what I do. For me, this is beyond cash." It was revealed that Carrey's humble persona was inherited from his father and that he taught him many things. "I'm sure there's a lot of Jim there, but he told me his father was an inspiration. All those big smiles, hearty handshakes, and how-to-dos were his dad's." Director Peter Weir made some underground works.
Because I believed, for reasons other than the studio system, I believed this guy had to be a movie star.
As most directors would say, shooting a show isn't the main thing, but getting it into the viewing space where everyone can at least have a glimpse. Right from the beginning of the making of The Truman Show, Weir was intentional about what he wanted for the show. Knowing that the challenges peculiar to all filming were just around the corner, he took some underground steps to get the best results. In an interview, Weir had reservations about how the studio Paramount would market the film to audiences and the corresponding impact of their involvement on the show. Concerned, he took further steps just in case his guess was correct. He wouldn't get to cry last. "I was concerned that the easiest sell of a film starring Jim Carrey would be as a comedy, whereas I was aiming for something more than that. I asked to meet with key marketing and publicity people during pre-production to give them an idea of what I intended to do. That involvement by a director was unprecedented as far as I know, and resented by one or two," Weir recalls. "But the meeting went ahead, and I took them through the story scene by scene. I think it helped with the great job that resulted," he adds. The show transcended several decades.
But, you know, I've been around a while, I get it.
50 years later, in 94. What was that for you? The series of very...
For many years, shows were the easiest projects within the Hollywood industry to light out until The Truman Show came to the scene. The show, as insignificant as many thought it was, didn't just change audiences' perspective about shows, but transcended decades that have never been recorded in the history of TV shows. One time, the phenomenal director was asked for his view concerning the show in this modern, confusing digital era of pervasive smartphones, social media, and non-existent privacy. and his response revealed the perfect answer to its impact in recent times. There's a key line in the film when the show's creator, Christof, is asked why Truman has never discovered the lie that is his life. Christof answers, "We accept the reality with which we're presented," Weir says. Perhaps, given the bewildering array of new technologies, that line has picked up new meaning which impacts the film's relevance, he adds. In every decade, The Truman Show has proved its relevance. And not just that, the audience could still relate to the nitty-gritty that the show came with. There was no hitch and glitch behind the scenes. One thing any producer prays for is to get a hitch-free set, and a set that captures the unity of every actor and actress. The reason is that any minor on-set hitch could hinder the movie's progress and stunt the actor's overall delivery. But just so you know, during the show's filming, the set was never chaotic, nor was it filled with actors at odds with each other. Rather, there was a calm, conducive atmosphere that sponsored phenomenal performances from each of the cast members. Speaking along this line, production assistant Allura Melissa Charles, when asked about the shoot's ambiance, revealed the depth of the serenity that played out on set. The shoot's ambiance was, for the most part, relaxed and laid back. There was a definite order and daily bustle. Things needed to get finished, and they did. Except for the problems with the weather, I think things ran pretty much on schedule and everyone had a pretty good experience. This speaks volumes about the kind of director Peter Weir was. Coordinating a plethora of actors wasn't some easy job that one can flip at the blink of an eye, but is one that demands willpower to hit the highest hallmark. Weir should be given his flowers not just because his shots were accurate, but solely because he could coordinate a conducive atmosphere for the cast, something that has long been missing in the industry. Jim Carrey was just as hardworking as he portrays himself on screen.
So I got it unofficially from my brother. And
long before you talked with Peter Weir?
long before I think Peter Weir was even...
It is quite difficult for one to play a role different from who he is, and if he isn't on some professional level, it can ruin every effort he has invested in the past. Jim wasn't in such a class. In fact, behind the scenes, he was as hardworking as he always appeared on screen. Speaking in an interview, Steve Grody, one of the choreographers in the making of The Truman Show, revealed how tirelessly Carrey was up and doing during the filming of the show. "Well, I felt the shooting went extremely well, as near as I could tell. We only reset to do 2 scenes, and those were apparently because of the weather. The screenplay went through several revisions, but that was more due to being able to take advantage of certain fortuitous circumstances. For instance, there were 2 twin police officers in the extra group. When the first unit got a look at them, the creative juices started flowing, and they wrote them into several scenes. However, the tone remains true to the original script. After describing the things I have been doing with the movie to people, many have said things like, 'Well, I don't normally see Jim Carrey movies, but I will have to make an exception. I certainly hope that Liar Liar will help them to redefine their impression of him.' My answer has always been that this movie could have also been done by a young Jimmy Stewart. As to the mood of the set, it was light yet serious about the work, and almost all of the stars were great to work with. The lady playing his mother was apparently the exception, but that is second-hand information from a friend who was lucky enough to get a speaking part, and I will not go into that further since I don't know for sure. Jim was always on point. No wonder it gave the show to hold, and even after several years, he could still be remembered for it. The cast enjoyed every moment like it was their last.
It was about 7 or so from my agent saying, "Look, there's a film called..."
In an industry where hate, competition, and backbiting run as the order of the day, it is quite unusual to find co-stars who see every movie as an avenue for creating lasting relationships. However, The Truman Show was one of the few exceptions where co-actors loved themselves and enjoyed every moment like it was their last. Speaking in an interview, Laura Linney, who played Meryl Burbank, revealed how the sets were an avenue to ease the stress of the day. "We would laugh about how unrealistic some of it seemed," said co-star Laura Linney, remembering conversations the cast and crew would have on the film's Seaside, Florida set. "We couldn't quite believe that someone would want to tape themselves, so that people could tune in and watch what was considered at the time to be mundane and see that as entertainment." One crew member doubted the potency of the show. "We live in a world where everyone is entitled to their opinions, and for many reasons, you wouldn't blame them for making such an opinion. Did you know that during the filming of The Truman Show, a cast member who was actively involved in the process of the movie didn't believe that the movie was going to make any sense in the Hollywood industry? But to his greatest surprise, it not only became everyone's favorite, but exceeded the expectations of even critics and naysayers. By no means did I think that this movie was going to be prescient, agreed Sherry Lansing, who oversaw the production of over 200 films, including The Truman Show, during her tenure as CEO of Paramount. Suddenly, we were going to have all these reality shows like The Kardashians, The Real Housewives. When I watch reality television and people who live in front of the camera, there are many now who do. I wonder how much of this is real and how much of it is just because they're in front of the camera. Do they really know themselves? But every time I watch one, I think of Truman. It is safe to say you don't judge a book by its cover. How The Truman Show made it to the box office was a mystery. Nevertheless, no one could downplay the input of the crew members. The initial script was quite different from the one that made the final cuts.
Unique qualities. I mean, people often said to me, don't you think it was big?
One thing producers wouldn't want to do at a late minute is to change a script's tone. And so for this reason, they scrutinize every script before filming. The script for The Truman Show, which was presented to Peter Weir, was uniquely scrutinized. The script was quite different in every sense and reflected scenes that the director wasn't pleased about. Nichol, the writer who penned the final script of the movie, had made the tone darker and set it in a parallel dimension in New York City rather than an idyllic seaside town. Per the screenwriter, Truman had a drinking problem. He was cheating on his wife with a prostitute, of course. He didn't know that it was the worst-kept secret in the world since the affair was being televised. In one scene, he fails to intervene in an assault on the subway. It wasn't the kind of script Weir would work with, so he opted for a change. The details were malleable, but the concept was undeniably strong. Said Lansing, I remember thinking that the basic idea was simply extraordinary, that as you think you're going about your life, you realize it's all fake, and the idea that it could be a television show. I was involved with the movie Network as an executive. This script kind of reminded me of the idea that the media in some way could control your life and that you didn't have free will and that everything in your life was fake. It resonated with me, the tragic nature of it. The show changed an actor's life.
Yeah. Definitely a man with a stash that big has some kind of insecurity.
I remember
buying a...
Every actor wants to be on the radar of the most sought after, and many times for that to happen, all they need to do is feature in a blockbuster movie. Jim Carrey, who played the role of Truman, wasn't that big when he was offered the role in The Truman Show. And even though he had a few credits here and there, he still wasn't a worldwide sensation at the time. But guess what? After he earned himself a role in the show, everything turned for the better. When Carrey read the script for The Truman Show in the mid-90s, his life was a bit surreal. But the moment he clinched a role 2 years later, he could command $20 million in fees, so much so that he was haunted by paparazzi cameras. Those were the kinds of things that happened periodically that made me realize, okay, my life will never be the same, said Carrey. It's almost as if celebrities lose their civil rights when they become famous. There are great advantages too. I've certainly been shown incredible amounts of love, but there are certain times when there's just no sympathy for someone who has done well whatsoever. No one is going to cry a river for me. Brian De Palma was actually given a head start.
Well, we're all great admirers of David Lean because he made like the perfect movie. And
opportunities, they say, come once, and if you miss it, it might not be recovered. Brian De Palma, as wonderful as he was as a director, missed the opportunity to handle a project that would have echoed his name in the history of TV shows. At one point, he was attached to direct The Truman Show, but for one reason, he left without adding a cent of his creativity. De Palma wanted to remove the dramatic reveal that made The Truman Show so clever. Rather than having both audiences and Truman realize at the same time that his life is a TV show, he wanted something else. While I admired Andrew Nichol's screenplay, I felt its dark tone and New York setting undercut its credibility, said Weir. Why build a New York set? Too costly. And why would millions tune in 24/7 to something grim and depressing? Scott encouraged me to reimagine the piece. I contacted Andrew and he was willing to work with me on a fresh approach. The story was revamped to be more lighthearted. Truman became a man who had dreamed charmingly of being an explorer, until an actress playing a teacher swatted down his ambition, telling him, "Oh, you're too late, there's really nothing left to explore." The first time Weir met with Carey, he brought a carefully curated lookbook of images that exemplified the character. It so moved Carey that he has held on to it for the past 20 years and pulled it out of storage before our conversation to revisit the contents. The Truman Show was made before the video came out.
Absolutely. So I read the script, was sort of bowled over by it because it's so original and so challenging.
The Truman Show, as revealed by one of the cast members, Linny, was made before the video came out, when movies were still made on film, explained Linny. Now you can do 1,000,000 takes, and because it doesn't cost as much and isn't as precious, there's a casualness now on sets, which isn't bad, just different. During that period of time, film was very valuable. So when the camera was rolling, everybody became very quiet and leaned in. Everybody, the crew, no one could move, no one could speak, no one could whisper, no one could look at a phone because we didn't have them. It was a very different atmosphere on a set, and it's one that I miss actually because people really had to listen. I look back on it as pure filmmaking in a way that just doesn't happen anymore. Scott Rudin made some nasty statements. Everyone has a diverse perspective on how they see things. Nevertheless, some jokes are better not said than churned out. During filming, Scott Rudin made some nasty statements that most people didn't find pleasing. Rudin showed Lansing an early cut of the film. He then joked that he should have an ambulance waiting outside the screening room in case she had a heart attack after realizing an $80 million budget had been burnt on what was, in its first cut, an art film. It's not unusual to have a bad first cut of a film. It was unusual to have that bad of a first cut, I have to say, said Lansing. But 20 years after it premiered, the movie remains one of the modern age's most hauntingly prophetic films. Well, I guess Lansing and Scott apologized after finding that the show did phenomenally well after its premiere. The primary cast members lived inside Seaside's actual picture-perfect homes.
Is, in some respects, counterfeit. There's nothing fake about Truman himself.
Filming a show like The Truman Show, for some reason, demanded that the cast members inconvenience themselves a bit. To be honest, these cast members were ready to go to any length just so they could deliver their roles without a hitch, and it kind of made their delivery easy. Did you know that the primary cast members lived inside Seaside's actual picture-perfect homes? Linny was so caring that she invited Taylor, who played Truman's mother, to bunk with her. "That was how we became very good friends," said Taylor. This helped their partnership in varying ways, and to be honest, it helped stabilize the atmosphere in scenes where they could do the needful. She and Linny spent their time trying to figure out the mental tightrope of playing an actor maintaining a character in someone else's fake reality. And it was worth every moment. A cast was inspired in ways unimaginable.
Morning! Good morning!
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Inspiration, as we know it, plays a vital role in the life of actors. And to be honest with you, some of the iconic moments in movies were recorded by inspiration. Most roles come with so many burdens that actors have since learnt to rely on the inspiration that comes from elsewhere. Just to let you know, Linny had no choice but to watch Carol Merrill on Let's Make a Deal for a possible inspiration needed for her role. Weir had wanted Linny to do a wonderful job, and if that was going to be possible, then she would need all the inspiration. She played it beautifully, like some joyful animatron, said Carey. This wonderful fakery that obviously she's known people in her life that were on the surface really happy and yet coming apart inside. Linny actually went from an uninspired actress to one who was inspired beyond measure, and truly it helped her overall delivery in the movie subsequently. This also reinstates the fact that good things don't always come easily. Sometimes you have to sweat in ways no one can imagine. Today in history, Linny is highly spoken of as one of the cast in The Truman Show that made a difference. All of this started behind the scenes. The filming had some snags.
Oh, Truman. You knew this would happen. You know you can't drive over.
Every producer knows that snags are things peculiar to a movie shoot. However, it isn't always a problem for those who come prepared. During the filming of The Truman Show, there were a few snags that occurred, and to be honest, it spoke poorly of some of the actors until they got back on their feet. The first snag actually came from Dennis Hopper, who was initially cast as a Svengali-like director. He actually could not remember his lines. It was something no one ever expected, and Rudin couldn't hide his discontentment when that happened. It was really absurd. According to Stephen Galloway's biography of Lansing, Leading Lady, Weir also suggested that he step in to play the godlike character himself in what would have been an additional meta flourish, but Rudin threatened to shut production rather than allow it. But just to be on the safe side, Weir and Rudin pulled a few strings and used Alan Arkin as a substitute. Not everyone can tolerate some level of incompetence. I hope Hopper learned from his mistakes and worked on himself. Carrie almost drowned in a tank.
We will see a lady on a red bike, followed by a man with flowers.
Risks and stunts are typical in a movie shoot. If one isn't careful, they could slip away with the slightest mistake. Did you know that Jim Carrey, while filming the scene in the tank, almost ended his life on a very sad note? Despite all the safety precautions made available, Carrey revealed that he almost lost his life, and it was the worst scene he has ever acted in his career. I was wearing wool clothing, a big wool sweater, wool pants and shoes, and they had jet engines blowing on me. And they had these giant wave machines that were creating gale force waves. I don't know if you can see it in the film, but they've got divers underwater. And I'm actually giving the signal of like, I'm in trouble, which was a clenched fist. They just saw it as acting. I went under. I had no breath left and I was drowning. I was under the water at the bottom of the pool, and with the last breath, with the last hint of consciousness, I just spun and made a couple of gigantic strokes toward the back of the storm and came up outside the storm gasping for air and exhausted. I just barely made it to the edge of the wall where the sky is and hung on the edge of the wall gasping for air, looking back at the storm that was raging still. And it went on for another minute, and then slowly shut down. They didn't know where I was, and then they finally saw me and came over. I almost died. That was the real deal. Some cast members cling to some titles.
Morning, Spencer. Hey, Pluto. Oh, no. Get down.
He won't hurt you.
Get down. Yeah, I know. It's just me.
Come on, Pluto.
The Truman Show, in all honesty, deserved some accolades. And if it wasn't recognized for what it was, it would have been unfair on the part of those involved. As much as the show was celebrated, some of the cast members received awards that were a direct reflection of their hard work. Did you know that both Carrey and Harris went on to win Golden Globes for their performances, as did composers Burkhard von Dalwitz and Philip Glass? The film also earned 3 Oscar nominations for Weir, Nichol, and Harris, reinstating again and again that it truly deserves some accolades. I think Hollywood knows it's full of shit in a lot of ways and just wants someone to say it artfully, said Carrey. These awards mean a lot to the crew, but I guess Carrey said what he said because of the little ugliness that happened behind the scenes in the Hollywood industry. That notwithstanding, it still won't take away the fact that the actor's blood and sweat finally paid off in no small way. Gary Oldman was favored by Rudin. Every actor at some point, if honest, could attest to the fact that in one way or another, they have received favor from colleagues or perhaps those who have gone ahead of them. During the filming of The Truman Show, a scenario revealed itself as favor in the life of Gary Oldman. He never saw it coming, and likewise, he wasn't less grateful when it dawned on him that it was a favor. According to Plachette, Rudin also called in a favor to Gary Oldman, who filmed a sequence in which Truman, suspecting that he is being watched by actors posing as strangers, takes a baby from a stranger's carriage and threatens to drop the baby unless the woman admits that she knows his name. The woman grows hysterical. Truman hands the baby back, and the woman tells him, "Thank you, Truman." Plachette said that there was never any discussion of Oldman starring in the full feature, though. Even the actor understood that The Truman Show's high-concept idea had top billing. He said, "Look, nobody cares about me in this. The star is the script." Gary Oldman eventually added his part to the show, and from there, doors to more roles were opened. Well, even though many had thought Rudin was always full of himself, he showed again and again that he is way different from what many had thought him to be. The Truman Show honestly doesn't come twice in decades. Since its debut, the Hollywood industry has not witnessed its kind, and I doubt it ever will. The show isn't one that the audience just watched and never came back again. Rather, they had their first glimpse and kept coming back for more. Andrew Niccol and Peter Weir, in partnership, drew a storyline that could not be rejected by the audience and critics alike. It resonated with all and sundry and planted a desire that made them love every scene. Honestly, The Truman Show is one show many won't forget in a hurry. And even after more years to come, its praises will be sung by incoming generations. But if you were asked which of these revelations blew your mind so much that you would even recover, and if you were asked the reason for it, what would be your answer? We would like to hear your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as there are lots of amazing videos waiting for you.